hizo church hakuna mali inasikizwa na hakuna mali mapasta wanaongea. Juu acha nikuambie, mali pasta anaongea kuongelelea watoto, anakutana na mshirika wawili watatu, mmoja ameuliwa mtoto wake, so hawezi ongea. That's why unaona hao wanaongea, mapasta wanaongea kuhusu ati nimeoneshwa, nimeota, niliona bendera ya Kenya, nikaona rangi tatu, nilioneshwa. Hizo vitu zenye wanasema, they are communicating to the parents. Kwa sababu acha nikuambie, hao wazazi wote sio wajinga, wamenyamaza. Aisha, wamenyamaza tu, they are on our back. You cannot kill our children. Na itaamka uchungu wa mzazi, my friend, ndio mtauona. Na they want us not to give up, because when we give up they will keep quiet, but when we pursue, sikudanganyi, twende maandamano au mwingine hii nini 88, gojeni muone, wallahi gojeni muone au tu hiyo ndio tuone. Hata vile mnasema ati vacuum, ati sijui vacuum, ati tutaenda ati jeshi we, tulieni muone hiyo 8 gojeni mpaka Putin, mpaka nani, watu wamegojea hivi au tuone.
Mimi nakusecond Tamara, because hata Maumau walifight ndo Kenya ikapata independence. Tukitulia tu hivi hatutawahi saidika. Whatever Tamara is saying ni very correct. Hata wafanye nini, mimi nao nitarauka kila siku kama ingine. Na hadi wajue, because kama si wenyewe tutatulia, nani ataingia? Umeona? And what will die, that is how you attain it. Hakuna vile tutapata what we want tukiongea hivi na hatutuki tu, tutapewa empty promises. Ama hata in fact hata wanaweza acha kuongea na hakuna kitu atatusaidia nayo. So I think kitu Tamara anasema ni real. Hata juu think of it hivi, tukose kwenda street na kufanya vitu kama hizo. Do you know anyone who's influential enough, with time Ruto ando watu ataondoa. So either way ataua tu. So it's better we die for the right cause than tukwe tu sitting ducks. Wewe ukipata enough build up kwa social platform zako unauliwa because wanauta create revolt. Sasa instead of hiyo, situkwe tu na hiyo revolt sahi.
Okay, unaona Tamara, mimi sipingi watu wasiende maandamano. Like nasema watu waende maandamano, but be a brother's keeper mazee. Unajua toka na mwenzako mwenye mnajuana mali mnaenda. At least if anything happens, someone is there for you. Mazee utaenda ushikwe, mimi nishaishikwa. Utaenda ushikwe alafu hakuna mtu wa kukutoa. Mazee enda hapo ukiwa na mtu mwenye unajua. Usiende tu, mimi sijakataa tusiende, tutoke ati nitatoka tena. Si eti nimechoka jua linishika siendi, nitaenda tena. Tutapatana na wao huko, but
acha nikwambie kitu moja Aisha, na mimi kila mtu microphone, na mute kila mtu microphone kidogo niongee. I want to address this kidogo, kila mtu atulie. Kuhusu kushikwa, guys, nyinyi mnashikana na polisi wamevalia uniform. Mimi nimeoa kwa Subaru, my friend.
Umeenda?
Amepotea bana, sikusikii.
Kama umelost.
Ni kwa rahisi.
Mnanisikia sasa hivi?
Subaru akapotea.
Sasa tunakusikia.
Mnanisikia? Sasa mnanisikia?
Tunasikia.
Ilikuwa naongelea kuambia that akina Aisha, you better thank God nyinyi mlishikwa na watu wanaitwa nini hawa sasa, wanaitwa police.
Jamaa anapotea.
Kuna mtu anacheza na nini yake, huyu mtu anacheza na wewe, unacheza game.
Sasa mnanisikia?
Lakini wewe ndio unacheza game.
Siku anacheza game mimi.
Kuna mtu anakuhack, jua
hata unakuwa hack pia, umeanza kujirudia. Okay, kama mnanisikia sana nisikilizeni vizuri. Si mnaona hiyo nimeweka hapo? Guys, nilichukuliwa vizuri na watu wanaoja na Subaru na Mavi na zile wengine wamejifunga Marafat. These people, they torture you, si wadanganyi. Ni venye walipatana na mimi najua ku stand it. Mimi ni mtu najua ukapitia vizuri, nimekapitia. So hapo mnaona hiyo ni usiogope, don't lose up. don't lose fucking up. Don't lose fucking up. Mtu mwingine aongee kidogo. Bossy, you wanted to speak.
Yeah. Nilikuwa nasema hii revolution ni juu ya kukomboa mtu mweusi kila mahali duniani. Maana miaka 500 watu walikuja kwetu, tukawakaribisha, wametukalia kwa vichwa, wametudharau left, right and center. Leo Nigeria Gen Z iliwajoin. Last week mlijoiniwa na Bangladesh. So hakuna
Uganda
give
pia.
up.
Uganda
Hakuna
pia
give
walikuwa
up.
last week.
Ilikuwa wapi? Uganda?
Yeah, last week Uganda, yeah.
Uganda pia nimesikia Gambia. So hii ni madharau tumefanyiwa. Watu walikuja kwetu wakapata tuko na mago religion. Kwanza hata mapasta tuziwasikize hata siku moja. Saa hii mimi tarehe 18 nimepanga tunaenda kwa Holy Mountains za Wakisii. Tunaenda maombi tarehe 18 August, kwa sababu hii inafaa iende the spiritual way. Tukienda the physical way, miaka 500 bado tutaenda kutawaliwa miaka 500 kwenda mbele. So si wengine tuko pamoja na nyinyi hata kama hatuko karibu, but spiritually tunapigana vita zenye hatutaki ku give up. Wacha nikwambie, juzi niliona mama fulani ananyanganywa mtoi hapa German. Amepeleka mtoi OC ati juu mtoi ako na wound, ameshikwa, ameitiwa askari, amenyanganywa mtoto. Watu wametuchezea, wametudharau, wanatuona kama takataka. Na mtoto wako ukinyanganywa wanaenda kufanya madhambi na huyo mtoi. So guys, hii si vita ya hivi venye mnafikiria. It's just that you are chosen as Kenya kuanzishia, lakini it's going to be liberation of the black man all over the world. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. SCP.
Mimi mambo wangu ni mbili, nilikuwa naomba watu 2,000,000 wakati wanataka kuenda State House, mutoe watu 50 ama 100 waende JKA, mutangaza kwanza mnaenda huko. Wakati atamwaga polisi wengi huko, na nyinyi sasa mnapata njia ya kuenda State House. Kwanza mnamzubaisha. Hii ni kama ni draft. Lazima mcheze wakati ya kuenda State House, kwa sababu security yote wako huko. Hivyo ndio ndakana pia sasa muangalie Kenya. Wakati mnatangaza, msitangaze mkue na hapo msimamo. Wengine wakienda wanaelekea huko, last year alimwaga polisi huko. Sasa nyinyi wakati mnajua hivyo, mnaibadilisha njia kuelekea State House.
Okay, Aleki.
Kabisa.
Aleki.
Hope mko fiti. Thanks sana kwa kunipatia mic. Sahii nimeroa kusikiza audio fulani ya huyu jamaa anaitwa Sudi TikTok hapo hivyo akisema Miguna anachochea mayouth. By the way, inadai t-shirt. Kuna t-shirt fulani inadai.
Gani hiyo jezi?
Na mimi ni mtu wa manyumba.
Unaniambia timu yako. Okay, kidogo I address this one. Hii ni side hustle. So anybody akona ina address na vijana wale wanapenda kuvaa majezi, you just DM me. Mimi timu yako imeandikwa Ruto must go, kama ni jina yako hapo chini ama Ruto must go, any name ndakupea. Okay, next person, endelea kuongea Leki.
Nataka Ruto must go George, sitaki Ruto.
Unaniambia.
Okay, sawa. Thanks. Sasa issue yangu ilikuwa umse anaitwa Oscar Sudi eti anasema Miguna anachochea mayouth. Mimi sikatai anachochea, but anachochea towards the right direction. Wao hao wase wamecapture Kenya venye sasa wazungu walikuwa wamecapture. So tunataka kuelaborate from that capture Venye wazuko walikuja wakakapcha Kenya na mashamba zetu, watu wakaingia kwa msitu, wakapigania hizo mashamba zikarudishwa. Sisi tunataka turudishe ekonomi ya Kenya kwa mwananchi wa kawaida. We can't be paying taxes for other people to go and kuishi fiti huko juu. Siko hivyo. Hatuwezi kuwa tunalipa tax hapa, msee anaongeza tax mpaka saa hii levy ya mafuta ishaongezwa. Kwa bunge na bunge, by the bunge yenye tuko nao sasa, it's the most corrupt parliament ever in Kenyan history. Bunge sasa hakuna sheria inaweza pitisha ya maana, hakuna argument ya maana bunge inaweza kuwa, like there is nothing like a debate in the parliament. Parliament is there to please the government. Parliament is not there to pass laws and regulation to protect the ordinary mwananchi. There is no interest of the ordinary mwananchi in the parliament. And I want us to revisit that parliament again. I want us to go and storm it again, bring it to ashes, because and recall all those MPs, hiyo kitu ivunjiliwe mbali na bunge iishe as early as today. Kwa nini? Hakuna interest ya mwananchi utawezi ikiongezewa bunge na iende through. Sasa hii wamesema bibi ya Gachagua na bibi ya Rais wapewe budget yao, ni kama mabwana zao hawafanyangi kazi. Kwani pesa ya Ruto inaendanga wapi? Pesa yake ya mfukoni inaendanga wapi? Pesa yake ni ya kushughulikia bibi yake na familia yake. Kama ameshindwa kushughulikia familia yake, atuambie sisi kama Wakenya relieve hiyo duty ya kuwa na bibi, akae bila mwanamke. Sababu sasa yeye pesa yake anapelekanga wapi? Ama ni ya kupatia tu shughuli. Sasa in the governance imekuwa sasa ni kama a family business. Amechukua side chick wake akampatia ministry. Sasa anataka ofisi ya bibi yake ipewe pesa. Pesa ya kuombea inji. Are we serious like a country? Na bunge tu iko tu hapo haifanyi chochote. It's just there to ramp up everything. Ruto akiulizwa anasema there is kuna bunge iko in session na inaongelelea hizi vitu. Bunge gani? Na yeye ndiye bunge. Ruto is everything in Kenya. Ruto hata hizo abduction zote ni yeye. Everything is Ruto in Kenya. Hata sasa hivi kugeraa kunyesha ni Ruto. Every problem we are facing as a country is because of Ruto. He has captured every sector, hata mpaka judiciary. Hakuna sheria, like hata sasa hii IPO inasema eti hakuna evidence ya shooting. Like seriously, are we in a serious nation ama we are just joking about people's life? Eti hakuna evidence enough ya kuonyesha kuwa kulikuwa na kila cop kwa demonstration. Evidence unataka nini? Na kuna mili zenye ziko kwa mogu mpaka waleo na zingine hazipatikana, watu wanatafutwa, wale wengine wanaokotwa huko kwa Makware. What's wrong with this government? I just need everything in ashes as early as now. Kama kuna mtu mwenye anasema anachochea, kwa kweli anachochea, na anachochea towards the right direction. The right direction is to make the wrongs right, either way, through all the means we have as the people of Kenya, because sisi ndio we are bearing the burden of these politicians, and they are messing up our nation as we watch. I will not sit and watch, and neither should you sit and watch. Thank you. I rest my case.
Nimeona kwa comment section na ni interesting. Kuna mtu amesema hapo maandamano next, watu wasikubali kuna mtu yote akibebwa na makarau, of which mimi naona hiyo ni poa. Unajua hawa watu bebwa sisi tukiangalia, unaona. So kama uko anywhere near uone kitu ka hiyo, create commotion, uliza kwa nini anabebwa. Tuko wengi, hawataweza chukua wenzetu hivyo, umeona. Because there's a time kuna mwenye pia alikuwa ameshikwa, watu wakangangana na yeye na akatolewa, umeona. So meaning pia si tukistand ground yetu haitakuwa rahisi vile anadhani. So ndio hiyo vile Aisha alisema, be your brother's keeper. Usiache mtu afanyiwe kitu ukiona, umeona. Tuko na sauti na tuko na nguvu tukiwa pamoja. Mtu asibebwe tu hivyo tubaki na story at who alibebwa at this place z. Hizo gari hazifai kupita first off, mtu afai aingizwe. Tunafaa kuwa pia si tuko na sauti na tuko na hiyo nguvu, umeona. At the end of the day, whether to act ama to si act, wanatuua tu. At the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. Evans, kama Evans still uko hapa? Evans? Evans hayuko. Njuki will speak, nimekupandia saizi Njuki you can speak. Njuki? Mix Njuki. Kuja tupanaye kunyamaza kindly. Freedom is home. Freedom is home.
Yes guys, mko poa?
Ya tuko poa.
Hello?
Ya tuko poa.
Leo nimeingia kuchelewa lakini nimejaribu kusikia conversation. Nasikia hiyo tempo iko sawa.
Yeah.
Kuna jamaa ameongea ACP, CG, ACP. Kuna some points ameongea hapo za maana sana. Tena ya muhimu. Round is like ameongea kuhusu tukitoka kwa maandamano, yani we are in the street Hii kucheza na yani why lazima kuna mahali watu watafaulu. Mi nimeenda na we maandamano, tuko on the street Polisi ananibeba, unaniangalia. The following day natafutwa, sipatikani. City mochari siko, wapi siko, na uliona nikibebwa tu. Next time ningependa kusema yani mtu asibebwe kama uko hapo, by all means. Anyway, that's good. Nitaongea as time goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Muraya, you can speak. Muraya. We ametoroka. Unpredictable. Na hivyo nasina kwamba ushuke mahali ulikuwa wewe. Hapo ulikuwa sawa, unpredictable.
Ndio ni. Uko wapi? Kasiana.
Niko hapa. Mko aje guys?
Uko poa.
Kesho watu mnatoka site.
Nacho ni rehearsals. Lazima tuogelezee rehearsals.
Na kesho rehearsals ya 8:00. Lakini one thing ni unajua ili na support nini watu
kitu ya nani ya Matiba as usual. As usual.
Na unajua ujanja si kupigana. Omosh, mwambie Alex ujanja si kupigana. Ujanja ni kuwa
huku chini wanapigwa Raila
Mine, in summary, is to say, because I know me old enough just to make sure that things are said the way they're supposed to be said. But then mine, I would say that before we focus on Ruto and we say Ruto must go, our problem is not necessarily Ruto as a person. Our problem are largely systemic in terms of, do we have systems to make sure that if Ruto goes, then what then is supposed to happen next? Because again, it is very easy to remove Ruto as a person. But then what when Ruto leaves and then we have a Raila or we have an Ochieng. So what is the difference then that comes from a Ruto presidency and an Ochieng's presidency? So I will put that as a comment and largely as a question because I know Meguna is going to speak. So what can we do to make sure that we fix our systems and not necessarily personalities or offices? So
Hey, I'm Kayla, and I'm one of the AI voices for.
yeah, that's my honest and humble
All right,
submission.
they can hear that and they're gonna talk about that. The last person, then I welcome Daktari, then we welcome Samuel, then we start our conversation. But yeah, I hear what you are asking, and that's the way I know Daktari will answer that. Yes, Godfather, good evening. How are you doing?
Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Madge, Kingsman, and our guest today. I want to recognize the presence of Migaya Kech as well, and Daktari, the General Miguna, our young guy here, Makoure, etc., and the distinguished listeners and those who will be speaking here. To begin with, the revolution is on, and it is not an event. It is a marathon. So maybe people must not despair. We are still on. We're marching on. Can we send Ruto home today or in the next few weeks? That remains to be seen, but it depends on how the result we have as a people. How much are we keen on doing that? And that means, as Professor Cheng has just stated, it is not about Ruto as a person, but the whole system. It will be a system overhaul. Assuming Ruto stays till 2027, what is the game plan? Maybe this is also a conversation that we need to have so that there's that bit of reality as well that he might decide to stay. And if he stays, Professor Ochieng, maybe, yeah, thank you. If he stays, then what are some of the few things we'd like to achieve to ensure that the revolution is complete at the ballot? So these are some of the questions we'll be pushing to our speakers today, the General Miguna, Makoure, Professor Migai, who is a professor in law and constitutional matters, might also maybe chime in, and many other speakers here, so that we see how we can move forward with both the options, so that just in case one bullet fails, maybe the other one stands. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Godfather. Thank you so much to those who have talked. I want to say this, that we are setting rules, no personal attacks on this basis, and that one should be clear to everyone. I was waiting many people to join to say this because you don't gonna repeat it. And also, let us be focused. When the co say that it is 2 minutes, we believe it and we mean it. That's 2 minutes for us, for all of us to talk, because we are more than now 2,000 people. And many requests as much as so we want to everybody to at least have a voice on the same, but that can be done if we are to the point, and if you have a question, just direct it, and if also you can write it down there, is very important. We're going to read them, and our speaker and everybody will come in to answer those questions. Daktari, how are you doing today? Good evening. Good how are you? How was your night? How was your day?
Good evening, Hillary. Good evening, everybody. I'm all right.
All right, welcome to Spaces again, and we're happy to see you, Daktari. Let me welcome Samuel Makoure. How are you doing? Good evening.
Good evening, Hillary. How are you?
Good. Happy to
Same
see you,
here.
man. Welcome to Spaces, and we're happy to have you today.
Asante,
Yes.
to be here.
All right, Biril, I saw your hands, and then we welcome Daktari to give his opening remarks, and then Samuel Makoure. Go ahead, Biril.
Good evening, Daktari. Good evening, Marge. Good evening, Kingston. Mine was just very short. I was actually responding to what Migai said. If you see somebody back on the top of the roofs and buying the crowd, that is somebody that is suffering from child. Let me not mention that word, but that is somebody that is looking for attention from the wrong seekers. So let's forge ahead. Let's carry on with the discussion. Let's make it productive, and let's forge ahead. Viva people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerotich. I see you down there. If you can have a mic and also come in, we'll appreciate. Daktari, Dr. Miguna, I see you, and the professor asked a certain question. I think you heard him very well. Can you come in and also give your opening remark as we welcome people on the platform?
Oh, thanks, Hillary. Once more, I welcome everyone to the spaces. I see also Professor Kivutha Kibwana. If he would like to speak, we would be more than welcoming him to come and speak. I welcome Kasmel, Makoure, and all the Gen Zs on the platform. It is Kasmuel and his colleagues and the heroes that died that have inspired not just Kenya, but the entire African continent and the entire world with their bravery, with their clarity and eloquence. It's very, very important, as I always say, the youth are the motors of change. And we have seen it in real time in Kenya for the last 1 month. It's quite inspiring. I wanted to say a few things preliminarily. I believe Professor Chieng has not been attending our spaces weekly. This point has been made repeatedly, that when we say Ruto must go, we don't mean Ruto the person. It is a clarion call that symbolizes a demand by the people for the overhaul of the system, including the removal of Ruto the person, the head of the regime of Kenya Kwanza, Anyans, the system that abrogates everyone's right and subverts the constitution, the system of lawlessness and land grabbing from the time of the flag independence in 1963 up to now. They are institutionalizing this system. That is why, actually, they have already institutionalized it. That's why when Ruto was put to a corner, it did not take long for Raila Odinga and his cohorts to come out of nowhere to start propping him up. And now they think they are fortifying well enough for him to go on rooftops and start lecturing people. I can see the arrogance that was there before June 25th has actually returned, with David Ndii and the rest going back to insulting Kenyans and the Gen Zs. They call them Gen Goons and other things. I would want us to reaffirm our commitment to this movement and to the revolutionary transformation agenda that the Gen Zs represent and have articulated. And we cannot do that if we don't organize and mobilize. Yes, this revolution has been and continue to be leaderless, tribeless, and organic. But it has to crystallize in terms of mobilization of all sectors of the Kenyan society, because no revolution can leave any generation, any gender, any class, or any region behind. We have to carry as many people as possible. So last week I talked of the broad-based movement where we are going to, and we must include all these factions and all these permutations of the movement so that we can win. We don't want to wait for 2027. It would be a tragedy if we allow this cabal to continue to be in power up to 2027, Kenya will be no more, because as it is, they have already bankrupted it. So I think if people wait until 2027, Kenya will be waiting for burial. So the ballot is not a revolutionary pathway in a neocolonial state. Kenya is a neocolonial state controlled not just by the cabal who are who live in Kenya and operate in Kenya, but by the Western imperialist interests. So election is just a choreographed coronation of the cabals. We recycle them, one faction after another, but the system never changes. What they do don't change. Our interests and our rights don't change. And therefore, it would be an exercise in futility to wait until 2027. So I have seen people are talking about nane nane, but last week I said the best way to remove this system and to defeat Ruto and his collaborators is to have a daily protest. It's not materialized, but it is what I am still calling for. Having these breaks and letting the security forces to go and rearm and reheal and recoup and reorganize is counterproductive. So I will be keen to listen to what people are saying in terms of the real concrete tactical input towards this realization. What is it that we need to do other than just saying it? How do we get people to stay on the street day after day until the regime collapses? What do we need to do logistically? How much in terms of resource mobilization do we need for water, for flags, for tents, for medical camps, for whatever it is that we need for daily protests to materialize? The students in Bangladesh have done a great job, but they're just students. In fact, the Bangladeshi protests have not been the entire population or generation like in Kenya. It's just university students. And look at what they have done, even amidst a lot of brutality. So in Kenya, we are lucky that we have a more broad-based mass of people who are disgusted by what we've had and have come out on the street. In Bangladesh, they're not even demonstrating because of corruption. They are demonstrating because of the reservation of 50% of jobs for veterans, minorities, and people with disabilities. In Kenya, the problem is worse. So people need to be more angry and to be able to come up with strategies and tactics of removing this regime faster than some of us are seeing. Thank you very much, Hilary. That's all I wanted to say initially.
Thank you so much for that call for, and you answered the Professor Cheng. I think you have had that, and the clear information is out there. Kasamud Makoure, good evening again, bro. How are you doing? And chime in, bro.
Good evening, Hillary. Thank you, Dr. for that, and for every Kenyan who's listening. I'm at a point where it feels very difficult to be a Kenyan. And I say this because it feels as though the activities of the past month have been futile. The political class is trying to make it seem as though we were just but wasting time and we were just but playing. And I've heard the president somewhere say that when in one of his promissory campaigns, as he's wont to do, that he had reserved some money for some development project, and when the finance bill was kicked out, then he had to re-strategize. And you hear the language, as disparaging as it is, he talks of our activities the way he used to talk about the members of the previous opposition when he was campaigning. It is disparaging because being on the streets as a young person, I did not look forward to seeing anybody die. In my head, when we started on Tuesday, we just wanted to sort out that punitive finance bill. But then the goings on of the past month have been nothing but eye-opening, that have revealed the rot that we have in this country. So a lot of the times when we come on the spaces, I feel like we tend to sit and talk about our hopes, our ambitions, and our aspirations. We risk going the direction that the establishment wants us to go, which is jumping on asking ourselves the what next. We're we're midwifing a very important process in our democracy, where the Gen Z movement is a vehicle for such an important uh, social change that we we ought to now, and I will seek the indulgence of every Kenyan around to figure out ways in which we will survive the now. Because as much as you've heard this countless times, I need to remind us that there are people who have died. They've not died, they've been killed by the police. At least 60 people. At least 60 are still missing officially, and hundreds have been maimed and injured and wounded. It's I think what I would love us to think about, what I would love us to steer this conversation towards, is what are sustainable ways for us to effect these kinds of changes? What are sustainable ways for us to ensure that when we say Ruto must go, when people are paid on the roadside, it does not demoralize us? Because you'll realize that the state has all the weapons, it has all the money, it has most of the influence, but we're at this uh, tipping point where the people have reclaimed their sovereign powers and we are exercising it. And we are seeing through the balderdash that the political class is clamoring to instill in our brains, and the fear that they're trying to instill in us, the brutalization, the criminalization of our rights, the criminalization of us being able to have a flag and us being able to have a voice. And I was talking to someone from the media the other day in an interview, and I told them that the reason why they even managed to advance to parliament and even talk to the police without being tear gassed or beaten is because the government, one, despises them, but two, knows that they own them and they can gag and buy them at whatever time they want. But as young people, even if you are a group of 10 and you gave a whole month's notice, you still will be met with heavy force. So I think if you're a young person and you're a part of this movement, I think what we need to be doing is asking ourselves, how can we sustain this in a way that it does not seem as though we are pursuing selfish interests to fellow Kenyans, not to external powers, not to the powers that be, but to fellow Kenyans? How can we continue with the civic education? How can we help the people in our communities and societies to understand that this is exactly what we're clamoring for? Because the government is hell-bent on misinforming. You've seen what the bots and the bloggers are consistently doing, trying to paint this movement, trying to tarnish its name and infantilize it. I think it's very important for us going forward to see how can we sustain the momentum in terms of education, in terms of us mobilizing in communities, in terms of dealing with the infightings that we are seeing, in terms of just rising above sweating the small stuff. Because if I believe that this change will be made. We're at the point where we will midwife this change. And for me, it is very clear, it's as clear as day, that we can change the system, we can change the status quo as it stands, only if we believe. And I'm just imploring you that don't fear, don't be afraid when we talk about the Nane Nane March. What are some of the ways in which we can ensure that it is a success? What are some of the ways in which we can track our progress in the mobilization in the week that's leading to Nane Nane? What does that symbolize? What does that stand for? What are some of the things we can consider to do to ensure that we do not lose more lives? What are strategic places we can congregate and gather? How can we also ensure that we have leverage over this oppressive regime that we have? I think I will stop there for my opening remarks, and then I will chime in a little later as the conversation advances. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel, and thank you so much for that. And we appreciate the work that you're doing and all the Gen Zs that on board and what they're doing. Tony Gashoka, I see you on board. How are you doing? Good evening.
Good evening, my brother Hillary.
Yes. All right. What is your take? Welcome to the space.
Well, the first thing I want to tell Kenyans is that, war is a series of battles. And if you are in a war, you must understand that you will win some battles, you will lose some battles. Some of them will be neutral, some of them will be devastating, some of them will have to be repeated. If you look at the history of war, particularly the Second World War, people will argue which were the most important battles. And high among them was the battle for, of the skies, the engagement of the German Air Force with the British RAF. Winston Churchill was to say later that never in the history of mankind has so much been owed by so many to so few, because of the gallantry and the bravery of the English pilots that were able to down the German planes. And Hitler, from that moment on, made a decision that he could not conquer England from the sky. And that began to affect his strategies, including opening the second front to attack Russia and Moscow. But also, Hillary, we are reaching a point of reckoning where everybody is actually being held to task, including the Gen Z movement. Over ambition, there's a Chinese saying that talks about ambition, that ambition without knowledge is like a ship on land. And sometimes, if you are over ambitious in your strategies, you lose the war because you lose battles that you should have won. And right now, sometimes in this revolution, there is a lot of infighting as well as there is advancements. Who owns these victories? Who owns the title? Is it a Gen Z revolution, or is it a Kenyan revolution? Is it being led by this group or that group, or is it an anti-Ruto coalition that is fighting for change? Machiavelli in his book, The Prince, talked about that to win, a prince must have half skill and half fortune. We must remember that underlying this head-to-head with William Ruto's despotic regime is the issue of the economy, that this economy is actually in ICU, that the tax regimes that he was proposing are because 7 out of 10 shillings goes to the payment of debt, and the other 3 will not be able to sustain the economy, and that continues to become the burden that is put on Kenyans. So as you execute this war, living, which is tied up to this energy, we must remember that the economy is hurting Kenyans every day. So the motivation is not so much the bullets that try to fill our children. What is the motivation is that people cannot live under these circumstances in Kenya for another 3 years. And therefore, the urgency of the moment is because we must change things. And to change things, we are changing not just dictator William Ruto, but the way in which the entire regime, and in fact, the way in which the ruling class has governed us. Why do we need 47 counties when we could have 8 counties? In fact, Nairobi should be run by the central government, like Washington, D.C., and the other could be reduced to 7 counties for costs. Why do we have a woman leader when we don't need that, and the cost of running government, parliament, MCAs, etc.? So if we remember and recalibrate that the problem that we have underscoring all our problems is the cost of living, and therefore an unbearable burden on wananchi, then we refocus, and that becomes then a war, yes, dominated by Gen Z, of course, by their numbers, but also dominated by all other Kenyans who are living under those strenuous circumstances. And therefore, what is the way forward? Revolutions that are fought against the economy are many, from Mahatma Gandhi to the French Revolution and the American, Declaration of Independence against King Edward of England, when they said that no more taxes can go to England without representation. And therefore, if you look at where Kenya has reached now, it has reached a point where the ruling class have decided to consolidate with the dictator. But I want to remind this country that Africa has had worse dictators. I remember Dr. Idi Amin Field Marshall. I mean, that man was as brutal. It makes Zakayo look like a priest. I mean, he was hounded out of Uganda. He was a military general of self-description. He used to call himself a field marshal. He used to kill and maim Ugandans, at will. But they were able to overcome him. Samuel Doe, Kamusu Banda, Emperor Bokassa. Here in Sudan, you had the changes that came that people could not even believe a military general could be deposed in Sudan, which was, a functioning military state dictatorship. So there is no doubt that we can triumph against Zakayo using the economy as the backbone of this revolution and this struggle. But where we must go is to be able to allow these younger guys who are very vocal to also understand there is wisdom in age and experience. That some of us from the 90s have been through this kind of process when the Forum of Restoration of Democracy was founded by Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, Kenneth Matiba, and at that time, the former Mayor Rubia and others who were able to come together, Wamalwa Kijana and various other people from all over the country, Baramarawis from the coast. And those struggles in the 90s can be mirrored to the struggles today. Those guys were then the young Turks. And the issue was that at that point, we were looking for democratic and multi-party government. Now we are looking for economic emancipation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Tony, and we really appreciate your ideas and also the match as you have the history and also the issues, what we can do and the way forward. And thank you so much for coming to the spaces always. And also,
Hillary, I don't think if Tony had landed, you just interrupted him as he was speaking.
Yes, I was just going to conclude, but then you came onto the space.
Right, okay, I'm sorry about that. Conclude, bro. Conclude. Yes.
I wanted to lend my weight and my prayers to this idea of Nane Nane, because Nane Nane may, actually go down in history the same way the March of Washington, led then by Martin Luther King, came into history. It can become the amalgamation, the glue that sticks us together, the kind of light that we need to be able to give life to this month of experience we've had against Zakayo. So I wanted to say that the idea and the founding fathers of this idea of Nane Nane are no different. In fact, it is better well thought than when we did Sabasaba. I want to add my voice to support it. And a cry on call that if we can now start working toward a target, having a day, because it's very hard to organize weeks of protest and everyday protest, but we can actually put our forces together, have one thing, because when the March of Washington was done, on that day in 1963, a million people marched onto Washington. And at that point, the American trajectory of the civil rights movement was changed forever. So I want to appeal this day on this forum at this space that let's also have a target. Let's have D-Day. Let's have a day when we can say we are meeting with Zakayo and we are meeting with him with all our force and all our strength. And there is time to organize, and there's a time to raise the funds and the organization for medical camp, for whatever is necessary. How can we put that together so as Kenya we can come and make Nane Nane an Independence Day in Kenya's history? That's all I want to say for now.
Thank you so much. I want to give this mic to my co-host. I see, Maggie, you carry up your hands, Kingsman, and everything. Everybody, welcome to the space, and let us continue to follow the rules. And also, when you open a mic, you have background noise. Make sure that you are in a quiet place so that we can keep our conversation clear as much as we can. Margie, I've seen your hand. Yeah, you can come in.
Thanks, Hillary. Welcome everyone to the space. At least now I'm more settled to speak. I want to take it from there. I had the position of Dr. Miguna. I'm hearing the position of Tony and also of Casmuel. And Benji, as you come in, what are the concrete means of really achieving results? Because that is what the previous speakers are talking about, but in different tones. So can you share with us, you know, really the concrete, steps that we would need to take to make sure that the results are achieved? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Maj. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Hillary, the host, Dr. Miguna. I'll be very brief. I wanted to come in at this juncture before we go too far, simply because I am very proud of what has happened in the last 5, 6 weeks. And why am I proud of this? For those of you who've been around civil society for a while, people like Professor Kivuda Kibwana at the Center for Law and Research International, where I worked for a bit under Maurice Odhiambo of the National Civil Society Congress. We had something in 2010 called Vugu Vugu Mashinani. And I'm very much able to talk to a lot of folks, including relatives that serve in government. And one of the things that I've heard, the themes I've had in the last 3 weeks is what the president had asked is anywhere in Nairobi where you see 100 people, 100 people, can the intelligence try to find out where is the transport for these people coming from and where is the lunch allowance? Because this is also how NGOs operate. Remember, we're living in a society, Marge and others, where we have very serious manufactured poverty. Kenyans live on this thing they call less than $1 a day. It sounds like a statistic, but it's very real because hunger is real. Food is so expensive. There are no jobs. Under Moi, we destroyed all the industries. And that is the result now in the economy where people are literally that desperate. So when they're not really finding this was very disturbing. And this is also very encouraging in the sense that having attended the protests, I can testify that a lot of the people that came, young ladies, campus people, people looking for work, even people in private sector that were able to get offs. Because it was so genuine, I remember being on Standard Street near Trattoria, and the restaurants were just throwing water to us to battle tear gas. Um, Remember the first days Java feeding people, etc. And so this has been a very big shock to the government. In a country where people think more selfishly, where it's very difficult to mobilize even 100 people. Why am I giving this background? I'm giving this background because, by the way, Tony Gashoka was referencing the Battle of Normandy. This was, I think the casualties there were something like 700,000. That's what Winston Churchill was talking about, just the grit and the valor, that came with this war. What I'm suggesting here has been said before, but I wanted to be more specific. And shout out to Caswell who talked about Nane Nane. The Million Man March that Tony Gashoka has just spoken about was prior to Kenya's independence. The Million Man March by Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. We must get serious. Why we must get serious is because you can see Ruto has a problem. It almost appears like a mental problem because I cannot believe that the president, and I have sent my petition to parliament yesterday to oppose the new cabinet. I cannot believe that you can dismiss a cabinet as a constitutional president and then return the same. If you look at Article 132, if you look at Article 75, Article 73, to dismiss cabinet, first of all, a cabinet is not a hangout for homeboys and side chicks and whatnot. This is just a fact if you read the constitution, if you believe in the constitution. And so, for someone like this that has now reverted to raiding the opposition, riding around on rooftops, the only thing these guys will understand, and which is a very achievable challenge, is for Nane Nane, let us, as we build towards Million Man March, let us target to get 800,000 people on the street. It is doable. Let us, like for me, I'm going to get anybody and everybody that I know to join the demonstrations. They have to understand why we must do this. They have to understand that this country must be saved. And as I finish, I'll demonstrate why this country must be saved. 800,000 is The safety is in numbers. You cannot kill everybody. In fact, I dare say, and I'm sure they're listening, you know, that day for State House, a lot of calls were made and a lot of people were called. And I was called. I was called. And what their argument was that if you march to State House and the regime falls, then the next president will face the same and the one after that. And of losing the republic and losing our constitutional democracy. And I can hear that. And of course, if you're a patriot, you have a concern for the well-being of your country. But look at where the country is now. Look at where the country is now. So if we can mobilize 800,000, because what these guys have done is they've regrouped quickly, they're mobilizing goons, they're abusing Gen Z and us again. The president, as we speak now, is in a town hall in Mombasa telling lies. There's only one language a bully understands. And so Casmuel and the rest, if we get 800,000 people in the street, we don't have that. They will have to mobilize the Air Force and bomb us and let them do that. Having said that, let me just highlight one thing and then I can close. The US government has written to State House on Friday. The letter is all over the place. It was in the form of a phone call, which then, of course, has to be typed out because the phone call is listened to by the CIA, etc., etc. It's very annoying that from the very start of these demonstrations, I personally tweeted Meg Whitman, and I've been talking to a lot of these guys before when we did governance work in the embassy, asking them to ask Ruto to stop shooting unarmed citizens. So now they've put it in writing. Uh, just to quote that, the president must hear the voice of civil society, must respect the contribution of patriots. But it just saddens me so much that we call out something on January 23rd, 24th, June 23rd, 24th, and it's until July 27th that you're putting it into writing when they've shot people in the head, when they're kidnapping citizens in broad daylight. And so countries that believe in democracy, that stand for human rights, must stand to be counted. This war is going to go even to the United Nations. This war is going to go ultimately even to the US Embassy because we are not playing. Kenyans are asking for their country back, and that is a very noble ask. Finally, I see people on here, I don't want to name them, that know a lot of the things that are going on. I'm made to understand that there's a very big scandal unfolding via the e-citizen where the boss centralized all collections of all monies, formed a company, and the brief was this is the money that we're going to collect via about 10,000 services in government, and then we go another money. The concern for me is of every 10 shillings collected, 7 goes to debt, and then 3 to development. And we know that there's a lot of theft going on. So my question is where is the money? This money being stolen, because I saw a British Prime Minister saying, and I quote, that if the United Kingdom had been subjected to the level of looting that a country like Kenya has been subjected to, the country of the United Kingdom would cease to exist. I think we have a much bigger skunk here, and that might explain the very serious desperation on the part of government. So let us be focused. Let us not do small demonstrations. I don't believe in those small numbers things. Let's do 800K. Let these people put their weapons down and say, okay, now it is like for like. Tumewasikia. Now we must go by how you guys are saying under Article 1.1. That is, if we don't feel we're hitting that target, let us not then go to the street. That's unpopular to say, but this thing of a flurry of guys here, 37 guys here, 140 guys on this side, etc., let us consolidate 800,000 people in Nairobi. Let us march to KICC and fill it, and Uhuru Park, and we stay there. God bless Kenya. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks so much, Benji, and thanks everyone who's listening. As we proceed, I would like to bring on board ladies also to speak. We will restrict to 2 minutes per person who are going to, share about how you think we can make the plans concrete. And if you have questions to the main speaker, Daktari Miguna and Caswell, please do that. The reason why we are restricting to 2 minutes each is because we've had several times where speakers are not able to speak and they keep inboxing and saying we were not able to speak. So for the sake of fairness, if you're still waiting and you've been able to speak on the panel the past 2 to 3 times, kindly allow those who haven't yet had a chance to also have a chance to speak. Chica Freak, over to you.
Is she speaking much? I can't hear.
She's opened her mic, but I cannot hear her. Chica Freak, are you able to hear us? Okay. Okay, as we wait for her to settle, Dr. Majus, kindly proceed 2 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our speaker today, Miguna and Makoure. I have some little to put across. Things have been said here. I heard Dr. Miguna talked about how we are going to do an overhaul, including the old politicians, if I put it in a simple terms. So I will ask him on that by the time he will be responding to tell us, are we here to build more enemies because we are in a war, guys, that people are planning for us. People are regrouping and want to make sure that we go nowhere. That's why you see a big coalition now. Raila and the president is now in one language. And if you do some analysis since the nomination of the new cabinet, people are speaking a different language. There are a good number that is speaking against the Gen Z. We might say that we are partyless, and I want to tell you, guys, we have been given a party or branded a party, Gen Zs, and with whoever is addressing anything that you are doing, we have been given a party or a name, Gen Zs, so we have been grouped in that name. Second to that, there is something that we must ask ourselves about a party. Can we form a party if even if it is not now, then in future? How can we use this? We are dealing with politicians, and if we are dealing with politicians, these are facts that we cannot run away from. How are we going to deal with them to make sure that we win? Even if we don't win now, the revolution comes with time. Revolution takes time, and Rome also was not built in a day. How are we going to deal with that? Second to that, these people have now come, they are out. You can see Ruto is walking everywhere to try to encounter what we have done for the last 1 month. How are we going to overcome this? I want each and every person to go through the 48 laws of power. How do you deal with your enemies? How do you scatter them? These are things that we should put in place. Then I want to request, can we take our focus direct to the parliament, even for this cabinet that was appointed that are just about to go to the parliament? Can we put our focus to the parliament so that we weaken parliament? I remember during
Kingsman.
yes.
Okay. Can you
Hello.
Marge?
Dr. Majus, thanks. Let me interrupt you for 1 minute. Probably I didn't explain. So for the 2 minutes that we are giving per speaker, after 1 minute, I'm going to raise my hand. So please look at my profile picture or any other of the co-host. If a hand is raised, it means you have 1 more minute to go. So, Dr. Majus, try to land, then we go to Kathy, then Susan, and then either Caswell or Dr. Miguna can chime in on that. So,
thank you. Thank you. I'm up again. I was requesting that can we take our direction direct to the members of parliament, just like we did it during finance bill. I remember we were everywhere for these members of parliament to an extent that some of the Ruto allies ran away from him and he remained desperate. Can we do the same so that we weaken this government by all means? Maybe reaching the state out might be somehow difficult to us. But reaching for these members of parliament, we can use this to weaken. If you can remember about the coalition government during Raila and Kibaki, Raila
Okay,
weakened
so
the
Dr.
government.
Majus, you will now have to land. We have to really be considerate of others. So please land, and then you go to
Thank you,
Kathy.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you,
No,
thank you,
just
thank you.
finalize your statement, and then we go to the next.
We remember by that time, Raila used that to weaken the government of coalition, whereby he will be consulted. And that's the formula that the government of Ruto and Uhuru used when they were stealing votes from all the way from the MPs to the president. And again, that's what the Kenya Kwanza has used during this time to make sure they have numbers all the way from the MPs to the president, so that there is no way you can handle him down. There is no way you can make the president toothless.